Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. This is my first time in India. It's been a great week. I've actually come in through Bengaluru and spent a couple days there, spent a couple days in Mumbai, and then I'm rounding out my trip here, and I'm actually boarding a plane, I think, in about 4 hours. So hopefully this ends up to be a good session for you as well. It's been a really good week, meeting with customers and partners, and this is our third session like this week. And hopefully for you, it turns into a kind of a conversation starter with Dell, as well as a conversation starter at your tables tonight, or out in the networking session afterwards over some dinner and drinks. It's Friday evening, so let's make sure we have at least 1 or 2 cocktails maybe to release a little bit of tension from the week and enjoy some food and some camaraderie with good colleagues in the environment. So thank you again for coming. What I want to do is really just have a conversation with you about what we've been doing in the information management space, what Dell is doing really in the overall software space and how that aligns to the rest of the Dell portfolio, and then really just introduce a couple of the solutions that we have, talk about those in a little bit of detail, but certainly there's very qualified individuals on the rest of the team that can dig into that in more detail with you, either later today or in future meetings. Okay? So let's start by throwing up this guy. Who knows who this is? Does anybody know who this is? Or this guy right here?
Yeah, Toad software.
What is it?
Toad software.
Toad? Yeah. It's Toad. So I think many of you actually are using Toad somewhere in your environment. Toad's been around for a very long time. It came from Quest Software, and then Dell acquired Quest Software into their organization. It's where I came from. I spent about 10 years with Quest, and I was the general manager over the business unit that included Toad and the rest of the database management solutions. And that's where a lot of our business intelligence and analytics capabilities were born, and now combined with many other things inside the Dell portfolio that I'll walk you through. Okay. But I just wanted to kind of give you some familiarity that this guy's been pretty important to us, and I'll help explain how that background in terms of database development and expertise, administration, query, data preparation, data manipulation, how it's really created that foundation for us as we move forward with you. Okay? I'm not going to be talking about the details of Toad today. All right, so these are the questions that kind of set up the day today. Big data, the conversation that many of you have with your executives on the line of business side in terms of the value of business intelligence and trying to exploit analytics more. The gap between different types of analysts on the IT side and on the business side, and then the connection between what you have today in your existing data platforms and where you may be going in the future with structured data, unstructured data, and new types of data in different types of repositories. But let me go back to the gap here for a second and just define this, because there's probably more than one gap between IT and business in most of our organizations, right? So the gap that I'm talking about, and the gap that we'll kind of drill into a little bit more, is really the idea that people on the business side require quite a bit in terms of reporting, in terms of dashboarding, in terms of the intelligence that they get from the data that you guys steward throughout the organization. As one of the business users inside of Dell, I want to look at things a particular way, right? I'll give those requirements to the IT group. They'll do their best to provide that. Many times they'll do exactly what I want them to do. But as soon as they give it to me, I say, ooh, interesting. Can I look at it like this now? And they'll say, yeah, give me 2 weeks. I need it for a meeting tomorrow, right? Does this happen to any of you? Right? This happens all the time, right? And the more that we depend on kind of, let's just say, the traditional BI frameworks, the things that are made to provide standardized reporting, to really adhere to governance principles around data management, they're very good at doing that, but they don't provide that flexibility to the business side. So I'm talking about that gap between what IT has traditionally been able to provide in a timely manner and what the business continually tries to ask for new things, right? And I think especially in just about every one of your organizations here in India that are growing quickly, they're changing quickly, the market dynamics, customer behaviors are changing quickly, that business demand changes every day almost, right? So that gap, it's never going to go away, but we want to talk about how to minimize the negative impact of that gap. Okay? So that's really what we want to talk about as much as we can today. All right. So before I dig more into the information management side, I want to make sure all of you know that there's been some pretty significant changes going on inside of Dell. Dell has been going through a transformation. Some of you may have seen some articles in the news about Dell a little bit lately. There's been a little bit of hubbub going on, right? But this transformation's been going on for probably a little over 5 years now, where Dell has made very purposeful decisions, very strategic decisions to move away from just being essentially a PC vendor, right? We've now captured a very significant share of the server market, the storage market, networking. We've acquired Grow Systems 3 years ago, so we have a very significant services presence. And really this past year, we made the move into software with the Dell Software Group. It was really the foundation was the Quest software organization, but there's other acquisitions that were made in the software environment around that as well. So we already have about $1.5 billion in revenues around software, but we're on our way to $4 to $5 billion in the next 3 to 4 years. That'll happen with some acquisitions and a lot of internal development based on feedback from customers like you. Okay? What we're going to focus on are these 4 challenges in terms of our overall Dell portfolio, from the client computing, server, storage, software, and services. Okay? These 4 challenges are what we focus on the most. I hope that these are challenges that identify with you, because that means that maybe we can do some good things together and solve things inside your business. Okay? Moving and simplifying to a virtualized or a converged environment, right? Empowering more of a mobile workforce to access that transformed data center, right? I think your workforce is probably changing as much as any workforce around the world in terms of how they're going to access things, be it remotely or be it from virtual desktops or thin clients or traditional PCs. Transforming via the cloud. It's never going to be all cloud probably, but we'll certainly have a hybrid environment, right? How do we do that and how do we manage that? And then, of course, managing and driving value from all the information, the data volumes that are going on around our organization and the data types. That's really where I've been focusing a lot of my time. Okay? So again, we're going to do this with the 4 combined areas, from end-user computing, enterprise solutions, really server, storage, networking, as well as our software. And a very important piece are the services. Right? Services not only from our direct delivery of services, but from partners. Many partners, especially based here in India, Wipro, Infosys, HCL, etc. Right? Working with partners that know your organizations very well. Some of you have maybe outsourced some of it to them. But it's important to customize it and tailor it and deliver it according to what your business needs are. So we really need that full suite of offerings. Okay? When it comes to the software capabilities, they really align directly to that. The centerpiece is, again, where I focus more of my information and more of my time. But then we have sophisticated systems management, everything from client management tools, performance management, virtualization, and physical. Mobile workforce management, helping you move from all of a physical environment to really handling that complex bring your own device challenge that's becoming more and more pervasive, right? And then the thing that stitches all of it together is doing this in a very secure fashion so that data is protected, your environment's protected not only from the perimeter, but also inside your 4 walls, thinking about concerns like identity management and other security permissions. Okay? All right, so that's really our software footprint today. It will evolve, it'll expand, it'll deepen as well as broaden, right? But this is what makes up really our overall strategy right now, okay? All right, so on to the information management conversation and the business intelligence. I'll let you read this statement here. It was interesting. I met with a very well-respected CIO here in town today, and he actually said that I didn't prompt him with this, But he actually threw out the quote of 90% of business intelligence projects fail. Whether it's 70 or 90 or 65 or whatever it may be. Many of them fail for a variety of reasons, but I think this may capture a lot of it, right? And maybe you've experienced some of this, or if you're just now embarking on some business intelligence projects, I'd encourage you to watch out for some of these things, okay? Because they're easy things to have happen, right? One is kind of what I talked about before, the gap is driven by poor usability, right? It's not what the business wants, and it can't be tailored quickly enough to address their usability issues. Lack of agility, missing information, the whole concept of it not being flexible enough, or if it's missing information, it may be because you've installed a data warehouse, it has most of your information, but it may not have the information that I captured in an Excel spreadsheet as a result of interacting with a lot of my customers, right? I want to take that spreadsheet of information and put it together with some of the other standard data that's in the organization. How do I do that easily? Well, I've got to pull data out of my business intelligence system, if I can get it, and put it into another spreadsheet, right? What's the number one BI tool in the world? Excel, right? But that's not something that's very easily collaborative or something that's preserved. And one of the worst things about it is that it creates copies of the data. What happens when you make a copy of data? As soon as you start working with a copy of it, it's out of date. It's no longer the most relevant transaction information, right? And if you're working with out-of-date information, your reports and dashboards, no matter how appealing they are, no matter how good they look to the management team, if they have out-of-date data, they're worthless, right? Or at least close to worthless, right? Shadow IT, no governance, internal conflict. This is a lot of the things that have started to happen. We've probably got enough picks by now, right? The shadow IT and no governance issues. Shadow IT, is this concept familiar? Does this resonate with you as far as an idea? Shadow IT? Yes? No? Come on, wake up. It's Friday, but you guys know what this is, right? Shadow IT is what happens when we in IT aren't able to address the business needs. So the business group goes off and forms their own little IT group or buys their own tools, right? This happens a lot with business intelligence concept, right? And it started to happen even more by some of the players, some of the vendors out in the environment knowing this and building tools that are just right for the business, but they're horrible for the IT group, right? They break governance issues. They let people get access to data they're not supposed to. It's not a good situation, right? It satisfies the business, and who controls the purse strings on most business intelligence conversations? The business does. But then the IT group is facing the issue of supporting the business users that went out and bought a tool without your permission or your endorsement, and then you end up being a help desk for a tool you know nothing about. Hopefully this is not familiar with all of you, because I would feel bad, but it's probably familiar with some of you, right? Okay, so one of the reasons that I think this has started to happen more is because of the way our data environments have evolved, right? We've moved from something that looks a little bit like this, where we have data storage, where data comes in via transactional systems. We have to manage those databases, right? That's kind of where we grew up an awful lot. It's where Toad has been very strong and where some other tools like SharePlex have been very strong. But then we have to extract it, maybe transform it, move it into a data warehouse, or move it into some other data location, maybe integrate it with another application for that usage. So data ends up moving all over the place, getting copied, getting transformed, maybe losing a little bit of context to the original transaction. There's oftentimes a data warehouse, right, which is a great concept and it works for many organizations, but it causes a bottleneck in terms of being able to analyze data and work with data because it has to go through that transformation, right? You have to figure out the structure before you put it into the warehouse, right? And oftentimes that structure is different than the structure it came into the business with, right? Data provisioning, people are working with the data in the data warehouse or in the data stores, and you're then going to allocate it out to different groups to work with it and analyze it and create reports, right? All along the way, there's trained staff that deal at each step, right? In small organizations, some guys wear multiple hats and do all of it, but in large organizations, you have a larger trained staff. As maybe as complicated or as simple that sounds, this is kind of the way it used to be, but now that we've been going through this huge data evolution and so much more information is being digitized, we have to store more data, we have to put more data through ETL process, we have to warehouse more data, we have to provision more data, cleanse more data. It's really becoming a challenge. And what oftentimes happens is we end up with something that looks a little bit more like this, where we have a heterogeneous environment. It may be different platforms. You may now have Oracle, you may have Microsoft, you may have IBM. It may be all Oracle even, but they're going to be in different silos, right? And connecting this data, connecting this information across these silos with these different teams, maybe through mergers or acquisitions or just expansions, this gets very complicated, right? Not to mention now we're starting to worry about textual data as far as mining data and storing data that happens in email that doesn't quite fit a structured transaction, right? It's not easy to fit into a SQL statement, right? So you're dealing with text data. Some of us are trying to figure out how to do call data if we have call centers and we're trying to analyze what's happening with all that call data or video data, right? It gets really complex, right? We at Dell, one of the things that we believe is this isn't going to really change. In fact, this is probably going to get a little bit worse, right? What we want to help you do is deal with this as best you can and be a vendor that has the view of being data type agnostic, platform agnostic, and location agnostic, okay? Whether it's stored in an Oracle database and it's structured data, or it's working in Hadoop or some other type of NoSQL store and it's rather unstructured data, whether it's from Microsoft or Oracle, we want to help you with the heterogeneous environment, that complex environment. There's a place that many of the platform vendors will help you with, right? And some of the traditional framework tools will help you with. We want to help kind of fill in the gaps and surround it maybe with a capability that has these philosophies in it. To provide a tool chain, if you will, that goes through that life cycle of manage, integrate, and then discover once you've integrated it or moved it, okay? I want to help you manage it from the point where the data comes into the business, integrate it and move it where you need to be, as well as discover and gain intelligence out of the information, okay? Now, do we have a complete portfolio that helps you do all of this? No, not yet. We don't. We have a really good start, and I want to share a little bit of that with you today. But this is where we want to go, and we want to work with customers like you to build out a more complete solution for you, okay? All right, so a snapshot of the capabilities as they exist today. Now, it's a bit of an eye chart. I don't expect you to remember all of it or even read every word, but it's a pretty rich platform of capabilities from database development, administration, data replication, data integration, data discovery, not only from kind of the standard business intelligence, reporting, self-discovery with data, as well as big data analytics. Okay, something where we're basing today most of our analytical power on the Hadoop platform. Okay, is anyone investigating Hadoop at this point? Have any Hadoop projects going? No? One back here? Okay, good. I'm just interested. What are you doing with it? Why are you? Okay. All right, good. Are you far along? Is it in production, or are you just, it's in production? Going well for you? Good. All right, great. What I've found over just the past week and in dealing with my colleagues and customers is Hadoop's still pretty early here, right, in this region of the world, which is good because you can let some of the other customers in North America and Europe beat their head against the wall, and you guys can just reap the benefits and do it the right way the first time. But what's again important here is that the lower layer, in terms of the data platforms, we support a vast array of data platforms today and different data types. Okay, so the tool chain above, the capabilities above, support a wide variety of database stores as well as data types. Okay. So I'll introduce a couple product names to you now, and then I'm going to drill into a couple of them in a little bit more detail, and then we'll get into discussions at the table. Okay? So again, some of you are familiar with Toad, this funky-looking guy over my shoulder here. Toad is something that provides database development and administration capabilities. Okay? It started in Oracle, but now it covers SQL Server, DB2, both LUW and ZOS, Sybase, MySQL. We have capabilities that we're actually releasing a Toad for Hadoop soon, so that will help customers that are kind of used to dealing with SQL and help them develop in the Hadoop environment without needing to learn how to know and understand the complex Hadoop framework. Okay? Which is kind of a fundamental to the Toad principle and our information management principle, which is many organizations can't afford to hire the best, most talented people to develop their applications and manage their databases. We want to help up-level those skills with the Toad capabilities. Okay? And that applies to any one of the platforms that we support. Okay? On the database monitoring side, we have a couple different capabilities. First is Foglight. Foglight is much more than just an information management capability. It's really about monitoring the overall application stack of where your data is flowing through it. Okay? It starts at the user experience where they interact with the application and where they start to produce data that's going to go into your organization, down through the application server, the database server, and then down onto a virtual or physical infrastructure attached to the network. Okay? So it's really more of an application performance monitoring capability that handles each layer of the stack. Okay? Spotlight is something that focuses primarily on your database alone. It's meant to be a diagnostics and monitoring solution for more ad hoc performance resolution. If you find that you have a problem and you find that it's in your database, you can use Spotlight to actually triage it and say, there's the lock weight problem, or there's the SQL statement that needs to be tuned. Okay? Gets very specific into the database. As far as application and data integration, we've got two different solutions. One, SharePlex, came from Quest, and Boomi was another one of the acquisitions that really started the Dell Software Group entree. So Boomi is an application and data integration capability that is SaaS-based. It kind of, if you're familiar with Informatica or Tibco or any one of the other message buses that really provide ETL or even sometimes EDI capabilities where you're moving data around and integrating, that's exactly what it does. I'm not going to go into great detail here, but I'll tell you that it does it for about 20% of the cost because it's SaaS-based, and it does it at about 5 times the speed in terms of implementing those application integrations. It's a really compelling value proposition because of the way it's been architected as a SaaS solution. The deployment is very, very quick. I was talking with one of the customers here that just before we started that if these three gentlemen have done an application integration between, let's say, Salesforce, we specialize in cloud-based applications, between Salesforce.com and their traditional SAP system. They need to get client records to match the financial system records that are in SAP. These gentlemen have already done the integrations. These gentlemen are doing the integrations now. You guys benefit from everything they did. So based on what they did and the hundreds of other customers that we have using it, you can say, yes, that's how I want to integrate it. Yes, yes, yes. No, I don't want to do it that way. I want to customize that one. Your integrations are extremely fast. One of our big customers was doing about 60 different application integrations, and it was taking them about 3 weeks to do each one of them. And it was costing them right around, I think, $25,000 per integration. Okay? We're able to do it for them at about $2,500 per application integration, and we were doing it in a day instead of 3 weeks. Completely different speed in terms of time to value. Okay? So if that's a problem that resonates with you, we can talk about that in more detail later. SharePlex is a capability that we've had in the business for about 15 years. We were just meeting with a couple of customers about it today. What it does is it replicates Oracle data. Okay? It replicates Oracle data for applications that cannot go down. Okay? if you're migrating the application, moving from Oracle 10 to Oracle 12 or something like that. If you're moving from and you're trying to create an HA or a DR environment, it replicates the data so you don't have downtime. Okay? It uses a concept of change data capture, so you're only moving changes in the environment. Okay? It makes it so that your applications are always up and you always have a copy of the data where you need it, when you need it. Okay? Oracle has some similar capabilities that they provide, and we can go into conversations about how these are different. But I'll tell you that Dell is probably the best use case that I would describe there. Dell used Oracle natively to do this replication capability on about 70 different applications. When Dell bought Quest, we brought in the SharePlex capability, and we're helping them to avoid about $1 million a month in downtime of a very critical application that we have in-house because we're moving over to the SharePlex capability. So it's a great and it's a proven tool. The last two are the Discover side, both on the data discovery and self-service business intelligence, and then big data analytics. Okay? Toad BI suite, which I'll drill into here quite a bit in a second, and then Katanga Analytics is our big data analytics capability. I'll drill into that again. Okay? So again, on SharePlex, just a little bit more on this. Again, business continuity for Oracle-based applications. If you have an Oracle-based application, which I think many of you do, based on India's preference for Oracle, right? We have a lot of Oracle usage here, right? If you have a large, sophisticated, complex application that runs on Oracle and you can't let it go down, you need to migrate that database, you need to upgrade it, you need to have it fail over. This is a capability that you can leverage. There's multiple use cases. You may not be able to read all these. I'll read a few of them. If your source database is in green, your target database is in blue, you have operational reporting, archiving, data warehousing, migrating, cascading using intermediary systems, data distribution, parallel processing. You have quite a few different use cases with one tool based on that application. Okay? Now, I'll tell you that if you're interested in this, if you want to learn more about this and understand how it can support data warehousing, moving data from Oracle into your data warehouse, or into whether it be an Oracle data warehouse or otherwise, there's a gentleman in the back. He's getting embarrassed by me pointing him out all the time, but he's back there sitting in that window, that strange little window area. Kapil is a replication expert. He actually was with Oracle for quite a long time working on replication, and now he's one of our SharePlex experts. Okay? So just a little bit of an architecture here. So the normal use case, the traditional use case is Oracle to Oracle. Okay? So it's got to be both Oracle to Oracle in order to be true replication. But one of the other things that we've done for near real-time data integration of that same Oracle data, you can take it out of Oracle and move it into pretty much any target database. Okay? Be it your data warehouse for analytics, for business intelligence purposes, or you can move it over into DB2 or SQL Server for other applications that may need to use that same data. Okay? The other thing that we've done, we just announced this to the market this week, is a real-time data replication from Oracle to Hadoop. So if you're using Hadoop for long-term storage of that same data, or you're using Hadoop for analytics, maybe using it with Katanga or another analytical tool, this would be a capability that would allow you to not only keep that Oracle database up and running all the time, but also at the same time offload the data to Hadoop for those other use cases. Okay? All with one solution. Toad BI Suite. So this gets to the gap conversation. Okay? So our belief in this whole self-service conversation, the ability to bridge this gap and bring these two different types of analysts together better, is we have to do it in a way that satisfies both the IT governance principles as well as the business flexibility and the demand for kind of doing whatever they want to do with the data. Okay? But it still needs to be controlled. We can't let the business kind of run hog wild, as we would say in Georgia, with the data. It has to be governed. It has to be controlled. They have to be able to get access to the data that they're allowed to get access to, and nothing else, right? Okay. One of the other big principles is that we want it to be collaborative. One of the challenges that I deal with pretty much every day is collaborating on data, right? So if I'm a business user and I'm running reports or I'm kind of looking at my data in different ways, maybe using pivot tables or something else, it's kind of hard to share that information with my colleagues. I sometimes have to mail around 12, 15 megabyte Excel files, right? I have to set up an FTP server, I have to maybe load it into SharePoint or something like that. It's just pretty cumbersome, right? And it's not very repetitive, or it's not very, you can't leverage it, right? It's very manual each time. So we're building an environment where the data that IT provides to the business goes through a collaboration hub, and then the visualizations and the analysis that the business does with their tool can also be shared back through that same hub, back to IT in order to maybe make a standard report out of it, or over to another user if they want to manipulate it and comment on it. Okay? So it becomes a real collaboration hub for the analysts. Okay? So let me explain a little bit how it works. So it first starts with the data sources. Fundamental principle that we bring is that we want to be able to get data from just about anywhere. Okay? We have many, many, many connections already in the portfolio from relational database. Boy, that is really small font, isn't it? Relational databases, Oracle, SQL Server, DB2, Sybase, MySQL, all the systems that we've been helping people manage and administer and develop in, as well as Hadoop, Cassandra, MongoDB, DynamoDB, these newer data stores that you really have not many skills around, but you may be adopting or that may be attached to new applications that you or one of your partners are using. What's important is that it's not just in your data storage. It could be in your data warehousing. It could be in your actual BI systems. Again, I'll go back to the example of if I want to get data out of a BI system, maybe it's Oracle Business Intelligence. I can get a report and I can download the data that makes up a dashboard, right? I can do that straight out of OBIE today. But if I want to mash that together with some Excel data or maybe some data that's stored in SQL Server in my little departmental database, or maybe it's Microsoft Access, I can't do that very easily unless I'm just using Excel. So I've got to dump it all in, and it just doesn't work very well. So using the product called Toad Data Point, the IT group will reach down into all these different data stores, and they can write one SQL query, and it'll pull all the data back from these different data stores. They can cleanse it, and then they can provision it out to the people that want to do something with it, like myself. Okay? So this data access that both Toad Data Point for the IT guys, the guys that work with data, and the business professionals, the guys that want to make decisions about the data, it's Toad Decision Point. It goes through Toad Intelligence Central. Okay? That's the access point. That's that collaboration hub I was describing. That's where they're going to pull the data from. That's where they're going to cleanse it, and then they're going to share it and collaborate with each other. Okay? All right? And then they'll have a presentation layer where those visualizations can be shared. They can be shared via mobile devices as well as web presentation layer or just the regular client tool that is made up with the overall suite. Okay? So for each product here, just a little bit of detail. It's just a screen capture to show you the kind of environment that this person would work in. This is the IT analyst that's working with querying the data, has access rights. Okay? They're going to use a very familiar interface that if they've ever worked in Toad, they'll know it right away. Even if they don't, it's a very easy interface to work with. It's drag and drop in terms of how they connect the data together, how they connect the different data sets. And the important thing is they can automate it. Okay? Very, very frequently, many of the systems that the IT guys are working with and the queries and the reports that they're pulling, they do every week or every month. Sometimes every day, right? They don't want to set up those queries and do those things every single day, right? Manually. In Toad Data Point, they can set it up automatically, and they don't even have to go back in and run it every day. They can just schedule it, and it'll run it by itself, okay? Now, the other tool, the other client-based tool is Toad Decision Point. It's something that a person like me would use. I'm not in SQL every day. I'm not writing queries. I'm not directly going to the database using a SQL statement. It's a visual interface that allows me to do graphing, tabular or dimensional views of the data, stack diagrams, drill downs, etc. Right? But it's something I'm quite familiar with, and they're very easy to use. The important thing here is that I'm not taking copies of the data. Okay? I'm not taking copies of the data because we're using a virtual hub, a virtual copy of the data that is being provisioned to me. When I do my manipulations and my analysis of the data, I can preserve the visualizations, shut the system down. The data is flushed from the virtual cache. Okay? Uses MySQL on the back end to preserve it. Gets flushed, and then when I open it back up and I look at my same dashboards again, I refresh it, and it brings me back the updated data. Okay? So if I'm doing it once a week, I'm going to get the data from that same week without having to rebuild my reports. If I want to share that same data, that same visualization, that same analysis with one of my colleagues, if they don't have access rights to the same data that I do, maybe they're in another region, they're in the Asia-Pac region and I'm in North America, they can still view the data the same way. They can use the builds that I created, but they're going to view the data that they have access rights to. Okay? So they can apply that visualization to their world. All right? So it makes it very applicable to the IT governance issues that we were talking about before. Access rights, governance of data, it's all preserved. Okay? So we're not making copies of data, and we're not allowing people to get access to data they're not supposed to. The spread mart issue, right, as far as copies of data, having out-of-date data, we're trying to avoid that as much as possible here. Okay? All right. So fundamentally why, I've kind of said these things, but we want to make sure that we're increasing the return on investment if you've made existing investments in BI frameworks, right? It doesn't necessarily replace your Cognos or your business object systems, because those have a very good purpose in terms of giving a report to maybe 3,000 people at a time, right? You're not necessarily going to use this environment for that. But what you do want to do is have the business users be able to access what you're giving them and maybe mash it up with other data, do a little self-service data integration, and come up with their own intelligence and their own visualizations. Again, adhering to governance issues that you apply. Okay? It increases the decision-making accuracy, of course, because they're working with the data they need, and we've talked about the governance and collaboration issue. Okay? Questions on this before I move on to the next one? Anything? Okay? All right. So, a couple quick examples, actually. Dell is a big fan of using its own capabilities. We certainly use our own laptops. We use our own server storage and networking. And now we're starting to use our own software IP. Okay? We actually work with a partner here in India. They're called Mu Sigma. They do a lot of analytical services work. Very good group, very advanced in terms of the analytics they can do. They've started to use Toad BI Suite to transform the types of reports that they've built for us over time. A lot of it was in Excel. A lot of it was in just basic, Excel capabilities and charts, but they were very manual. You couldn't drill down into them. They were basically static images, right? They've converted these over into Toad Data Point now, or Toad BI Suite, and there's comparisons of week over week. It's automated. That's the best part about it. It used to take 2 guys every week to produce the reports for the overall business unit reporting. Right? It was just very cumbersome. So now much of it's automated. Okay? Very similar for a different business unit. This is actually in the server storage group. The prior one was actually the software group. So they've taken a very similar Excel-based, they've got the conditional formatting on the results, and just converted this into a very visual process and automated it. Right? Didn't take them very long either. Each one of these took them about 3 days to convert from the old way of doing it to the new way. So it's a very fast, easy transition. Okay? All right, so lastly we'll talk about Katenga. Now this one is probably beyond some of the customers that I talk with today in terms of this concept of analyzing vast volumes of unstructured and structured and semi-structured data together. Some people are getting into it, but what I want to really help you understand is that the Dell Software Group is looking to where you're going and trying to get ahead of you guys as much as possible so that we can work together in as you grow in terms of the challenges that you're addressing. Okay? Now, again, the portfolio is not complete. No tool is perfect in our portfolio, but hopefully by working with you, we improve those capabilities. So with Katenga, it also came through an acquisition. Quest actually acquired it. It was an acquisition that I pushed through about 3 days before Dell bought Quest. So I'll never get over the acquisitive nature of the IT industry, but it's a fascinating one. So it was a small operation, but it was built by a couple of experts in natural language processing, in content mining, and in machine learning and collective intelligence concepts. One of the guys, his name is Mark Davis. He worked with the U.S. Department of Defense for a long time, doing some of the unfortunate black magic that some of the American citizenship are now finding out about it and they don't necessarily like, right? He was right in the thick of that for a long time in terms of analyzing and correlating data, looking for the patterns and the structures of data that really don't come through when you look at things in a SQL statement or in a relational database, okay? So what does this thing do? It helps tackle this issue, the fact that data volumes are growing, the structure of data is changing. We're trying to take video files and map them to social sentiment of customers that are in those videos and match that to transactional data that they run and everything. It's a pretty complex situation, right? So that's what this is really trying to help tackle, is getting after the growing volume, the number of different data types that are happening, the Internet of Things. Okay. To be clear, though, analytics isn't new, right? We've all done analytics for a long time, actually. Some verticals have been in this game a lot longer than others. Some of us have been dealing with big data problems for a long time. I would guess that based on who I know we invited to this event, all of you have a big data challenge. It may not be defined the exact same way as the way some of the analysts talk about it. It may not be all unstructured data, but it's a data challenge. And I think any data challenge today is a big data challenge, right? Because the whole idea is getting information out of that data. And that can be a pretty daunting task oftentimes, okay? So we've applied these capabilities and some of the other services capabilities that Dell has to many of these analytical use cases around different verticals. Okay? I'll give you an example. There's a retailing organization that sells garments, that sells fashion items in the United States that we work with. And they had a very typical challenge of any retailer. They were trying to increase the sales in their retail stores, right? Not a different challenge than any other retailer, really, right? Most of the typical answers to that challenge were increasing advertising, maybe discounting, promoting a sale, hiring more clerks to get more customer service going, etc., right? But instead, the IT group and our services organization actually went to the business and said, I think we have maybe a different way of tackling this problem. Before we try to increase what's happening in the store, let's really understand what's happening in the store today. Okay? So what we did is we started to mine their video data from their security cameras. And we actually modified it a little bit so that we could follow their customers around the store using some technology that we partnered with. Okay? And then we got all that data and we ran it through actually an SAP HANA system. Okay? And we applied some algorithms to it. And we figured out that if people were going into a dressing room and trying things on, they were 50% more likely to buy something. Now, they didn't know this before. It seems kind of obvious, but so then the answer became, instead of advertising more and spending a lot on that, instead of discounting the products that they were selling, just get people to go in a dressing room. Right? It seemed kind of like a simple solution, but they didn't have to spend money on it, right? And it actually ended up increasing sales by quite a bit. So they were really pleased with that outcome of the analytics process. And now they're looking at doing more analytical work and projects with us to address other business challenges. Okay? So back to Katenga. and the challenges that we have, I think, with big data analytics and analytics in general and BI, it comes back to the typical challenges of business intelligence systems, actually. It comes back to leadership and organization and the skills to do things, right? I think one of the key things that we all have to do as we start to tackle big data and start to think about the analysis opportunity that we have is we have to have executives in our organization that are willing to first invest with you guys in people that can do this, in systems that can handle it, but they need to be able to believe in the results that data give them. Oftentimes, I think we've run into many business executives, I'll put myself in this same camp sometimes, where we trust our intuition and we trust the fact that we've been in business for 20 years and we've done this time, and data may tell us to do something very different. We need to have the relationship with our business partners to say, let's lock on a business challenge, and as leaders in our organization, agree that we're going to give the data a shot. We're going to give the data results a shot and go down that path, right? Unless we start taking some risks maybe and betting on the data results, I think we're going to end up doing a lot of the same things that we've been doing for a long time. So, how do we do that? Well, one of the ways is maybe using tools like this, where it'll help you do analytics based on some of these more sophisticated things that, in fact, the Hadoop framework allows you to do. Now, there's a lot of ways to do it, and Hadoop isn't the only solution. It's something that we've kind of said, this has some really unique capabilities, but also helps you do it in a way that's very cost effective. Because it's open source technology, because it can be run on relatively commodity hardware, Dell servers don't cost as much as some of the higher end servers, right? And they end up being a very cost effective solution. Okay? So we've kind of bet pretty heavily on Hadoop. It uses capabilities around machine learning, natural language processing, content mining, etc. And allows you to do analytics that allow you to search through your data in a very intuitive way. It's basically just a search function. Okay? Search through the data and look for patterns and look for the way the data fits together in ways that you may not understand, right? At least just by knowing the data or not knowing the data, right? And then it allows you to visualize it in ways that help really expose those patterns and relationships. Things like heat maps. I've got a couple on the next page. They may be a little hard to read, but things like heat maps or tree maps, bubble charts that allow you to show, this is what's happening the most versus the least. Network topology diagrams, where if you hover over one data point, it'll show you what it's connected to, okay, and what it's not connected to. So it gets into some pretty advanced but common visualizations if you're talking to statisticians. I can't say that word. But what you want to do is you want to be able to have a tool like this that doesn't require you to be that data scientist or that statistician. Okay? You want to be able to, again, advance the skills of the team that you have, the DBAs that you have, and the people that have been used to working with data, and really advance their skills without having to be heavily trained. So what this does is it really helps you transform your data, all of your sea of data, into something that's maybe meaningful. Okay? And it helps you do it in a way where you don't have to understand the back-end framework of Hadoop. You have to know a little bit about it, and we can help you do that. In fact, as Dell, we can help you deploy Hadoop. We actually have good partnership with Cloudera to deploy that distribution on Dell hardware and optimize, and then wrap it with Katenga to really provide you a full Hadoop-based analytics solution, okay, to tackle some of these problems. But it's easy to use. It provides a much faster time to value instead of having to cobble together things and use a lot of the open source technology as a toolkit. This does a lot of that for you. Okay? I'll give you a couple examples, and then we'll open up the discussion with the group right on time. So a pharmaceutical organization, It's a worldwide pharmaceutical company that was dealing with a compliance issue. They couldn't really tie the different drugs to the different compliance issues that they had. So what they had to really do was comb through all the documents that related to these different drugs and find patterns, okay? And find which ones were related and which ones were causing problems and which ones really weren't the problems, okay? So once they got all the documentation digitized, some of it was digitized, some of it was still in paper format. But once they got it all digitized, we pulled all that data into a Hadoop cluster, and we ran it through Katanga, and we helped them understand which drugs were contributing to compliance problems more and which combinations of drugs were contributing to those compliance problems. Okay? They really weren't able to do this before. Okay? And the pharmaceutical industry is somewhere they've been dealing with a big data problem for a long time. Much more on the research side. This was actually more on the sales and the actual the aftermarket side after they developed their drugs. Okay. Another one, and this is actually in this area of the world. There was a small government in the Southeast Asia region that we worked with. They were having some social unrest problems. Right. Their public, their citizenship, was really starting to use social networks quite a bit. So what we helped them do is connect to and pull down the social network data and pulled it into Katanga, and we were helping predict when there might be a social unrest coming, okay, and where it might be coming, okay, whether it be in this neighborhood, in this population, based on the natural language that they were using, based on whether they were saying good things or bad things in the social network, right, based on if they were saying bad things tied to words about the government, right? Natural language processing helps you understand what the true sentiment of language is, because it looks at it in the context of the other words around it. That's some of the power of this tool, okay? All right? Make sense? Okay. All right, so in summary, first thing I want you to take away from this conversation is that Dell is much more than probably you realized we were a couple years ago. We have a pretty extensive software capability. We're very serious about the information management marketplace because it's a challenge that all of us have, and it's really only going to become an even greater opportunity for all of us. The data, the information that's flowing, the ability to understand what our customers are doing, where our products are being bought, sold, what's working, what's not, to drive more profit in our businesses. Okay, this is something that we're really serious about, and we want to help you manage from the point where your data is coming into the organization, and then help you move it, help you integrate it wherever it needs to go, and then help you analyze that data to get more intelligent decisions in your business. That's really what we want to focus on with you. Okay. And again, I want to be clear, I'm not claiming that we have everything. We don't. But we're really building out the portfolio quite aggressively. If you've been reading the news about what Dell's trying to do, the investment plans that we have and how much faster we want to go than what we've been doing so far, this is a big part of it. So I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you tonight. And what we're going to do now is we can kind of open up from some questions, and then we can have individual conversations at the tables, and then we'll go out and have some food and drink, and you guys can get on with your weekend and go home to your families and do whatever it is you do on a Friday night. So, okay. So questions about anything that I've talked about or anything that maybe I didn't talk about tonight?
So you talked about 1.8 zettabytes of data there. So Dell being a player in end-to-end service chain right from the hardware to the software layer. So just wanted to understand, so software part you've already explained. What else you are doing on the hardware piece, if you could just give us a glimpse of that.
Yeah.
So it's not only about managing the front end, but also to optimize at the back end.
Very good question. So as you may know, Dell has actually become a leader in the storage industry, right? And in the server market, right? We ship an awful lot of servers that can go from a small environment up to a very complex high environment. So one of the things that we're doing is we're if I go back to what I said before, is working with some of the software vendors that are working on distributions of Hadoop and other NoSQL stores that are meant to handle these huge data volumes, and we're partnering with them to optimize them on our hardware, so that the I/O works well, so that the storage, the virtual fabric that's involved works very well together, and we're doing those in aggressive partnerships. We're also doing it internally on our own. We've got some really advanced thinking going on, some R&D that's probably 2-3 years out as far as when it'll hit the market, but that's all part of the solution. Again, I won't tell you today that we're only 9-12 months into the software game. So do we have all these things stitched together? Not at all. But we've started to do it, and these are very much a part of the transformation that Dell's going through. So you've hit it on the head. We don't want to just have hardware over here and software over here. We don't want our software to only work with our hardware, but we do want it to be optimized to deliver a complete solution for you. Okay? Who else? Questions or comments?
Yeah, when you talk about cloud software, you said, we can manage multiple databases. Multiple, whether it is SQL, Oracle. So far it is Oracle.
Yep.
So it is by option, or we can choose. When we are using cloud-based version.
So are you asking if you can manage Oracle SQL Server DB2 with one client? No. It's what Toad really is now is it's a portfolio of products. Okay, and what we've done is we've really built each one of the client tools to be the right tool for the platform that it's managing. Right? SQL Server is an example. Natively, Microsoft provides really good tools, especially on the administration side with Microsoft Management Studio. Right? Some of the capabilities we don't need to provide. Right? Oracle has left some of those gaps. DB2 has left different gaps. So we really build each one of the Toad products for the platform that they're managing. Right? MySQL is a completely different story. Right? In fact, MySQL is a freeware product. We don't charge for that one. It's downloaded about 10,000 times a month. But it's built for that platform. Right? So, but what you can do is most of our customers, the people that work with Oracle don't work with SQL Server that same day. Some do, but most are really aligned to a particular platform, right? But you as a management team can say, look, let's get such number of copies of Oracle, we'll have so many copies of SQL Server, and then we'll have other copies for DB2 and whatever. And then your team can all use those. The good thing is that if they do change roles or if they have to flip over to another database platform one day, the environment's very similar. So they don't have to relearn a tool, and they don't have to be experts at that platform in order to use the tool and be good at it. Right? We talk about up-leveling the skills, right? Making C players B players and B players A players. That's one of the fundamental concepts of what Toad does in helping people work with different platforms.
Offering for the business standard analytics related to finance or supply chain or HR functions? Or is it that every time I have to customize as per my source data?
A little bit of both.
As like OBIA and all are offering.
Right, a little bit of both. So with the professional edition with analytics, it comes with a lot of the analytical capabilities built in for regression testing and other statistical methods, right? Is it optimized against a particular platform like OBIE? Not necessarily, right? But it makes it very easy to write the scripts in the tool. To again, one of the major strengths of the tool is going across multiple platforms at the same time, right? So if you're only querying OBIE with data point, it actually gets quite easy. But if you're querying that alongside SQL Server, alongside another Oracle repository somewhere else, or your data warehouse, that's where it really comes in handy. Okay. If there's nothing else, then I think we'll break up into our individual tables, and we'll start having conversations about the different items on your table, and then I'll probably bounce around, and some of the other folks from Dell will bounce around and talk with you a little bit. But what I'd have you do is not trip over the carpet. Just turn to your right or turn to your left and start talking with the fellow IT executive next to you, and just start talking about the problem that you all decided to sit at the table for. And I think you'll find it interesting that the guys next to you have a similar problem or maybe a problem that you can help learn from. So thanks again for coming tonight. Hopefully that was helpful information, at least to start a conversation here tonight and maybe take it back to your business as well. So let's just start having a dialogue, and we'll talk for maybe, 15, 20 minutes, and then we'll have some drinks and dinner, okay? All right, very good.